The way I go about painting is not the same way that most artists do. My impression is that most artists get involved in something. They get to the point where they rent a studio and, in a monastic style, hide themselves and paint. That's an impression I have. Then there are other artists do it a little differently maybe, but sooner or later they get into it in such a way that is all they think about and do for periods of time. A day, a week, a month, a year, some of them all the time. I don't fall into that. As a child, I was encouraged in the early grades, probably when I was 8 years old. I remember a teacher I had, Miss Keselenko, who asked us to do turkeys for Thanksgiving Day. She showed us how to draw a turkey on blackboard, and we all sat down and drew turkeys. And she walked around the room, came to my desk, and she noticed that I was working on the sun. To me, it was a sunny day, and the turkeys were out parading. And I couldn't stop moving my yellow crayon over the sun. And so she said, why do you spend so much time on the sun? I said it was, the sun made it a happy day. In college, I took a course in art appreciation, and it was my first acquaintance with modern art. It talked about Mondrian and Picasso, Van Gogh. Now, from college, I go to the Army. When I got out of the Army, I was involved with jobs, and I took a job as a housing assistant with New York City. Disliked the job. I quit after 6 months and didn't know what to do exactly. I spoke to a friend of mine who was a teacher, and he himself was a pianist and also a music teacher in the school system. He said, why don't you try teaching? So what do I know about teaching? I mean, my studies were not teaching at all in college and high school. So I made some inquiries, and I found out that I had enough credits at least to take an examination as a substitute art teacher. Passed that test, and I began teaching 6 months after I was wondering what I was going to do with the rest of my life. When I got the real urging to do a painting, I would do it. Then I wouldn't do anything for a while until some other sensation would take hold of me, and then I would do another painting. I don't ever remember spending weeks at a time at a single painting. Like more recently, I did a painting and it took me about 5 or 6 months. But I wasn't painting every day. I'd paint 3 hours one day and maybe 4 hours another day, then a half hour another day, and so on, until I felt I was finished with it. Then there are other times I did a painting with Auschwitz as a theme. That took me about 3 weeks, and I was done with it. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I had the image in my mind, and I just did it. Some paintings come easily, and some are a struggle. Some I like, and some I don't like. Some are very personal, and some are impersonal and almost intellectual. The ones I have the strongest feelings about are the ones probably that I like the best. I grew up without a father. He left the family when I was 3. So my uncles became surrogate fathers in a way. It took me a lifetime to figure this out. Everybody in that painting passed away. And there are other individuals in the family that I didn't portray who have since passed, since I painted this. In that painting is my mother, my father, a beloved cat, cousins and uncles. I only painted the people I loved, or if not loved, at least were extremely important to me. And that's who's in that picture. All right, so the picture behind me, the carousel, is my young family. I try to make it a happy occasion everybody having fun. I put a personal touch into it by putting Charlie Chaplin into the picture. At the same time, I try to present each individual of my impression of them as to their character. So you'll see Vincent over here, very confident, raising a hat, leading the parade. You see Rachel holding Gianna on a flowered pony horse. There's you, Mike. If you look closely, you'll see a fire in your eye. Because when you were a kid, that's the way you were. You were always excited. Then there's Joshi on the horse, doing something athletic, which is what he was, very athletic, reaching over and taking the ring from Charlie Chaplin. It's Thomas. Thomas was always a very excitable kid, and he's screaming and hollering on the horse. That's bucking. It's just that I miss my mother on Friday nights especially, the beginning of the Sabbath, and she would bench lecht. That's what the expression in Yiddish is. It was just me and my mother growing up, and this was the most important moment of the week. And she would bench lecht, and there was always a little bit of a smile on her face as she said her prayers. She always wore a white kerchief. The heart that she's wearing, piece of jewelry, is one that I bought for her. It has had my picture in it. I bought it for her when I was 10. It cost $10. I saved for a whole year to accumulate the $10. On the lighter part of the wall is a Hebrew shin, which represents a letter for God. The objects on the table, you have the candelabra, the challah, which is traditional for every Sabbath, and the wine. There's a tablecloth, and on the tablecloth are images. A man bowing to a woman. These I got from a painter, Millet, did a painting of a harvest scenes in France in the 19th century. At the end of the day, before they would knock off from their field work, they would say a prayer and bow to each other and then go home. This is my way of saying goodbye. And to the right is also on the cloth is a single man facing a very tiny sun in the right hand, right up against the right part of the frame, and he's watching the sunset. So these are all my expressions of affection for my mother. When something happens, and I think it's important enough, I might even do a painting about it. There's always a little some spirituality in it that derives from the culture that's there. All my I try to follow a sensation of sorts that strikes me as important to me personally. I'm always looking for an idea that turns me on, emotionally and intellectually, and is also at the same time something of a challenge to paint. If I had a book and I was more of a writer, I would write down that experience. As it is, I'm sort of explaining it, but I'm also painting it. That's enough.